Let's talk about how to efficiently interview and hire the right virtual assistant for your real estate tasks to help grow your real estate business. If we haven't met before, welcome to my channel. I'm Charlie Cameron, a realtor, investor, and team leader at eXp Realty with the goal of helping thousands of real estate agents create massive financial success, take control of their businesses, and create a high-quality freedom lifestyle through real estate. Now, if you missed parts 1 and 2, you're going to be very lost. You need to go back and watch those. Part 1, we talk about why you need virtual assistants in your real estate business, what they can do for you, and what the costs are. And in part 2, we talk about how to actually go through the hiring process on onlinejobs.ph to find English-speaking virtual assistants to help you with your tasks. Now let's jump into this video. We're going to talk about how I go about the interview process, what kind of questions I ask, how I do the scheduling to be most efficient using Calendly. And then in the next video, we'll talk about how to train and collaborate with your virtual assistants. Let's get started. So here's the Calendly event I created for these virtual assistant interviews. 15 minutes is plenty of time. You'll have a subset of questions you might want to go through. I'll show you an example in a minute, but you won't need any more than 15 minutes, frankly. I've done this a bunch of times. What I do like to do, though, I like to block it off. I mean, no more than two to 3 days, where it needs to be a time block that's convenient to them, though. So think about the, Philippine time is 12 hours opposite of East Coast time. So I tend to do it late evening, like 8:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. Central, which is a little early for them, but if they're interested in the position, they'll show up for the position. So I tend to set that for just a couple calendar days, and I put right in here, I'm trying to limit bookings. So if they're not going to qualify for any of these things, I just want to not waste anybody's time and not take up that billet with somebody else who could be a good candidate. So I just put right up front here, hey, this is a full-time position. You need to work my hours. Here's my pay. If you're expecting $6 an hour, I'm not ready for that yet. I mean, we may get to that point with that VA over time. I do have VAs I pay $6 an hour. They're absolutely worth it. But, initially I need to vet them and see if this is going to work out. And I don't expect them to be actually doing 40 hours worth of work a week. So $4 an hour is kind of what I'm willing to part with for the tasks they'll be doing initially. And then, hey, look, you got to be proficient at writing in English. I mean, that's number one, right? All the other things we can train and we could talk about. So on the back end, Calendly allows you to create all sorts of event types. If you have a pro account, you don't need a pro account though. You can do one event for free. So you can create a Calendly account. I like the pro because it allows me to do integrated Zoom links, allows me to do team, red robins, all sorts of different events. I use this a lot, but you can kind of see how I set this up. Very simple. And then, you come down here and set up when you can book. So I set specific calendar days. I set specific times on those calendar days, 15-minute durations. I don't do any breaks in between because I really typically don't need it. And that's essentially it. I just need them to put their name and their email, and we'll go do this thing. You don't really need a lot more stuff in here. Just a basic calendar event where you can write a little description, and then you can give them the link to the event. Right, so you can just copy this link, and then you could give it to them in onlinejobs.ph. Okay, let me tell you how I conduct my interview process. So I cram it all together as much as I can in the week. So I try to set it up so that it's within 2 days, maybe 3, and I set a time that I think is convenient to these virtual assistants. Now, if I was smart, I probably would have put it during a time that I expect them to work for me to kind of test that out. I didn't do that in this case. You could try that. These are VAs that I expect to work during my daytime, but I put it at a time that it's generally convenient for most virtual assistants, especially ones that might be looking for a job, so they may not be on the nighttime hours, and this is a full-time position. So most of these folks may not kind of be on a full-time, their evening position, my daytime position. So anyway, I cram these together as much as possible. I use that Calendly link to do that. I keep it to 15 minutes apiece, and I can get, if I took 2 hours, I could have 8 interviews back to back. I was supposed to have 5 here, 1 bailed and rescheduled. That's okay. So as you can see, I've got 4 events right here, 4 tomorrow, 2 Wednesday. I've had a couple good interviews, so we may not make it this far, unfortunately. I can't interview the entire world, though I will say I did have an experience where the very last interview I did was the best one, and I still work with her today. So you never know. I would try and keep it to less than 10-ish. Otherwise, you're going to just, that's a lot of information. You're going to forget a lot of stuff. But it's really, really, really important that you take good notes. Unless you're a gut feel kind of person, you're just going to go with the one that makes the most sense and cancel everything else. I tend to interview at least most of the folks I sign that sign up with me. I think it's kind of a disservice to not. So I interview about 10. That's about as much as I can handle in my small brain of mine. So what I do, if I like what I see in their message to me on onlinejobs.ph, what I do is I send the same standard message here. Hey, I'd love to interview you to see if partnering makes sense. If those times and dates don't work for you, send me an email. But most of them know that if you can't make the time on the calendar, your chances are slim, right? This is what works for me right now. I'm hiring you because I need more time in my day, right? So most of them understand that you're busy and will try and make that time work, especially if you're talking about a full-time position. So I send them my Calendly link, and what I do is I put the name of everybody I send it to. I put the conversation we had, the message they sent me, a link to it so I can reference it immediately. And then when they've scheduled a call, I bold their name so I know they're scheduled. So a couple folks here haven't responded. Okay, that's fine. The opportunity, we're probably not meant to partner together. And then I set up a standard set of questions. So let me find one that's not already filled out. So Edgar here, he's the one that rescheduled. So I introduce myself, what my goals are, my family situation. I ask them to introduce themselves, tell me a little bit about yourself. And then I go into the questions. I tell them what I'm going to do. Hey, I'm going to introduce myself. I want you to introduce yourself. We're going to go into questions. Does that work for you? Great, go. I ask the questions that are meaningful to me, kind of in priority order. I talk about their experiences. What tools have they used that are relevant to what I expect them to do? And then I go into, hey, are you able to work the daytime hours for this task or that task? Are you good with, when we have 40 hours worth of work, dedicating 40 hours a week? I want to screen this out now in case we get to a situation where they're doing multiple full-time jobs for people and I'm not really getting the value that I expected. I don't mind them doing side hustles as long as it doesn't interfere with the work that I'm paying them to do. Makes sense? I talk about pay straight up, but I don't want to beat around the bush. If the pay's not going to be good enough for them, that's okay. There are some VAs that are worth more than what I'm willing to pay right now. And if it's working out with this VA for me, I will likely pay them more in the future. Absolutely. But starting out, unknown quantity, here's what we're going to pay during training, here's what we're going to pay when we go full time. And then I let them know that, hey, guess what? I'm not going to be offended if you tell me in the future that this isn't working out for you. I want to make sure that you feel like you're valued and that you're doing the best thing for you and your family. And if we can find a way to continue working together, great. If not, no hard feelings. I talk about how I want to communicate, Slack, email. I usually tell them we're going to tag up at least once a week via Zoom. And then, this is an interesting one. This is one I haven't had before. I'm going to ask them to sub-hire out tasks. So that's one that's new. Made sure they're comfortable with that. I ask them what questions they have for me. They usually always have some. Like, when will we get started? That was kind of the big one here. My first interview, I forgot to introduce myself and what I do. So they're like, what am I doing? Oh yeah, I should probably talk a little bit more about what they're going to be doing. I tend to show them how I lay out my tutorials and say, hey, here's some of the tasks you should expect. This can all happen in 15 minutes, trust me. And then I rate them at the end. How was their English speaking? I need to be able to understand them. They need to be able to understand me. Are they comprehending the questions and whatnot? And then what is my gut feeling? So you can see here, this is filled out. I get little notes on them. What's their experience? Blah, 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 blah. English speaking, okay. ... My feeling was they were a bit distracted. They had some very useful skills. And for a couple of these folks, I realized right off the bat, they're probably not going to be the person for me. But they had some skills in there that were very useful that I may want to leverage. So I ask, hey, even if you're not hired full-time, are you good with partnering on a part-time tasks as well? And almost always they say yeah. So that's a good thing to kind of have in your back pocket. Like, you don't have to not hire everyone. You could hire somebody that's going to work full time. But then, you know, we're at a point where we want to do some link building. Let's let them go out and do some outreach and build us some links to get us some backlinks for our posts. You know, Peter might be the right guy for that. You know, Jesse was the first person I interviewed. Great. But, you know, English wasn't great. The experience really wasn't that relevant. Hadn't used some of the tools I was, you know. So this is a good way to take these notes and know. If we'd gone through all these interviews and then I needed to go back and go, man, who was the bomb diggity and who was just kind of okay, I may not be able to decipher the difference later. So it really is important to take these notes. You know, this gal right here did not have all the skills, but I know she's going to be able to learn everything and that she's going to hustle. That may be all I need, right? She threw out a tool that I was thinking about using that I haven't used yet. So anyway, I've got the notes in here. Hey, I felt really great. She didn't have all the experience, but highly trainable. So I'll let you know how this goes at the end of the week when I've done more of these interviews. I like to be quick in my response. So I said, hey, by the time I'm done with all these interviews, by Thursday, you will have an answer. And we will get started on Monday, even though I don't have 40 hours worth of work built out in tutorials for them yet, but that's on me. So hope this helps. Okay, so we've gone through the interview process of interviewing 8 to 10-ish virtual assistants. We found the absolute best candidate for the job and maybe a couple backups just in case one of them doesn't really work out as expected. And now we're ready to move on and hire them. So we go ahead to the hiring process. You can kind of work out the pay details with them, how they're going to get paid, how much they're going to get paid. But the next step really is the most important part of this entire thing, is getting them trained and collaborating with your virtual assistant. So if you're enjoying this series so far, please give me a like and subscribe, and hang on and watch that next video so we can talk about how I go about training, which is very important, and collaborating with my VAs.